Is everybody on mute?
Okay, we just unmuted everybody. We're waiting for some copies from April of the minutes. And so we'll get started here shortly. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Okay.
them three guys down on the end of the table aren't social distancing.
I am.
Joe and I were, Phil moved in between us.
Phil did it.
We'll get that
April is the only
to
one. Where'd Alan? Oh,
Oh, April.
oh, really? Okay. Oh, okay.
I'm impressed we're out there swapping spit in the hallway.
Yeah, we already kissed.
Nice out there.
Before the meeting gets started, I'll just let the people that are on the Zoom, let them know that, please, if you have any questions, can you please type them in? And I do have, we do have access to the questions here. Oh my God, there's a fly. And so basically, if you type in a question, we'll try to get to it as soon as we can. And we're not screening any questions. We in the room here can see the questions as they come up. So I know that some questions up already, and we will try to address those as we go on with the meeting. April is here now. We just have to disseminate the meeting minutes that she's having copied, and then we will call the meeting to order. I want to thank everybody for Zooming in today. I do want to also say that this is the first time we're trying this. Our last TEC meeting was held without anybody being able to attend due to the COVID. Now that we've gone a little ways down the COVID road, you know, Zoom and the WebExes and the different ways of meeting have been used quite frequently. And so the way the schedule was that the next TEC meeting for July was going to be held at Boy Sports. So we stuck to that schedule. The next TEC and quarterly meetings are October 22nd and 23rd in Grand Portage. So how those meetings will be conducted, I'm sure will depend on the COVID pandemic and see where it's at that time. We want to say to please, this is our first try at this. And as I mentioned this morning in the Human Services Subcommittee meeting, this is new to us. And you know, we know that there's better ways we can do things. And after today, we will try to get things out there like agendas and those types of things for the posting on the website for like the subcommittee meetings. You do have to remember though, those agendas are not approved, so they may be changed if they are posted on the website. But we know we can do things better, but we're just trying this and already finding ways to improve for the next meeting. And hopefully, like some of the members have said, you know, maybe the COVID won't be so bad, but we can't predict the future. So I want to just say Chi-miigwech to the members that could be here today that wanted to come here today. I do want to acknowledge also that before we get started that we want to take the opportunity to say Chi-miigwech to Beth Drost as chairwoman of Grand Portage. You've done a great job, Beth, and I'm so glad we all got to know you and work with you, and that it's been our honor to have you here sitting at this table with us. And We wish you well in the future, and please do not be a stranger. Please come and see us whenever you can. And we just want to say, gee miigwech to you, and thanks for being our friend and colleague. Okay, you can't see me. We're trying to social distance, and I'm in the. They stuck me in the corner. No, I volunteered the corner. But basically, we are here at Fortune Bay in Tower, and at this point, I would like to call the regular meeting of the Tribal Executive Committee to order. Let's see. We do not have any invocation planned at this time, so if I may do a moment of silence or invocation. Miigwech. That'll ask for roll call, Gary.
Roll call, Mike Fairbanks. Alan Roy. Karen Jackson. Archie LaRose. Beth Dross. April McCormick. Kathy Shavers.
Here.
Dave Morrison. Kevin Dupas.
Here.
Ferdinand Martineau.
Here.
Sheldon Boyd. Melly Benjamin. We have a quorum.
Thank you, Gary. Please, if you're having trouble hearing us, just let us know. Type it on your questions.
Do we have a resolution for this?
Okay. All right. I see, we'll go on with the approval of the agenda. Gary?
Okay. And approval agenda, quarterly reports, are you going to skip those today?
Yes.
We'll skip quarter reports. BI agency, there's a letter in the file we'll read. And the new business under Adam is not Alan Fairbanks, it's Adam Fairbanks. He may or may not Zoom in. I haven't heard from him.
Yeah, he said that.
Okay.
You might be on there.
Okay, so he might come on. We'll get to that. Then under information, just something I'm going to read regarding a meeting on the 20th, telephone meeting. Otherwise, that's the only changes.
And we're removing the discussion on current tribal council members.
Yes,
Mike
Mike, do you want to move that?
Yeah.
Okay, discussion on current tribal council members. Mike Fairbanks is taking that off the agenda.
A couple questions that came up in the meetings before we approved the agenda was the land transfer, and Phil will address that in this meeting. And then also there was an October 30, 2019 meeting minutes or meeting where they questioned a breach of the Roberts Rules of Order, and we'll add that under Phil also. So with that, I'll call for a motion to approve the agenda with changes made by Melanie. Is there a second? Seconded by Beth. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed?
All right.
Silent. Motion carried. Next, we have the minutes. Gare, let's see, January 31st, 2020.
Okay, the first minutes are the first handout that you have in your packets right now, January 31st, 2020.
President Shavers, this is April McCormick, and I made some corrections to the minutes as far as condensing them into a more brief So the part I just handed out is the new January 31st and then is 24th. And then I've got the May ones, but I need to go through them and kind of condense them because the difference is they're on word for word, which is really cool technology. But I think the minutes should be shorter to action items. And then we can rely on the Zoom and other recordings to look back at conversation or kind of refresh our memory from there. So the minutes become more of a function of recording that.
Okay,
Okay, so what I said about it, the minutes being the packet, we won't look at that one. We'll look at the first one that was handled by April, correct?
Yes, thank you, Jim.
Yep. That probably leaves Kevin and Bert at a disadvantage as far as being able to read the minutes that are handed out.
yeah.
I can try and send them to you to email. Do that right now.
Kevin and Ferd, April's gonna email the minutes to you that were amended or changed,
Okay,
January 31st, 2020 meeting minutes. They're different than the ones in our packet. What was that? That was on our speakers. We apologize.
Archie, that's what I said. The one was in the packet, staple, ignore those.
Question for clarification.
Yes, Alan?
So on page 6, the first two language added as compared to the original version. And so I'd just like to take some time to review them and table the minutes.
Okay. Are you guys okay with that? Okay, do we have a motion to table the minutes? All of them or just the January 31 ones? Okay, motion to table the January 31, 2020 meeting minutes. Moved by Archie. Is there a second? Second by Alan. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed? Silent? Motion carried. Okay, next we have the March 24, 2020 special meeting minutes.
Ferd, do you have the minutes?
I do not.
Sorry, it's taking me a second.
Hang on. He's sending them now. She's working on it. Alan, do you have a comment? What? Alan makes a motion to approve the March meeting minutes. Do we have a second? March 24, 2020. It was a teleconference. Second by Melanie.
Yeah,
Oh, Kevin.
I just received mine right now.
Oh, you did get them.
Yes, so I haven't read it yet.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. Speed read. No, just kidding. All in favor? Signify by saying aye. Opposed?
Opposed?
Opposed by Kevin. Silent?
Silent.
Silent by Bird. Motion carried. Next, we have the meeting minutes from
They're not done, right?
May 1st, 2020, special meeting by Zoom. You guys got those, right, Kevin?
So Kathy, this is the one that I need more time to condense. It's almost word for word from the report. Which is really a great tool.
Say again, Kathy?
April has asked to table these meeting minutes as they need to be condensed. And so do we have a motion to table the meeting minutes from May 1st? Is it? May 1st, 2020. Who did that? Moved by Archie. Second by Alan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried.
Can them minutes be sent to us?
Yes.
We
April?
don't have,
April, can you make sure that the members get the meeting minutes?
The May.
Yes,
Yeah.
May 1st.
I need some time to condense them. They're pretty long, so.
Tomorrow. Okay, we'll make sure you get the minutes. It's rather a long discussion, she said, so she's got to condense it.
You got 3 votes.
Okay, resolutions, Gary, they're getting rammy here.
Okay. Under. Gotta get to 'em first. Resolution, the first resolution, and I see that neither one of them are in the packets. I don't know, Mike just got them after the packets were sent out, but on the resolution, Circle Flight 2020 funding, resolution number 8820. It was approved at Natural Resource Committee meeting earlier. I will read the resolution. Whereas the Minnesota Chippewa Tribe Environmental Program did submit a proposal for the Circle Flight FY 2020 funding, and whereas the project will partially fund a wetland specialist at Grand Portage to use standardized methods for wetland monitoring throughout the 1854 ceded territory and the Grand Portage Reservation. And whereas wetlands are important, particularly given this uncertain future climate in buffering hydrological events, in addition to providing critical habitat for sensitive species and cultural significant species such as wildlife. Whereas monitor wetland conditions and its quality is needed to detect changes, inform management decisions, and help set restoration priorities to maintain these important natural resources. Now therefore be resolved that the Minnesota Chippewa Tribal TC does hereby approve the resolution providing assistance to the Grand Portage Band as described in the grant submission. Be it, let's see, we can skip it. Be it finally resolved that the TC does hereby recommend the TC does authorize the executive director Gary Fraser or his appointed designee to sign any pertinent documents related to accepting the grant funding, including any amendments as needed.
Do we have a motion to approve the Circle of Flight FY 2020 funding, which was already approved through the Department of Natural Resources Subcommittee? Moved by Melanie. Is there a second? Second by Alan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent. Motion carried.
That was posed by Kevin.
There's a delay. So
Okay.
I'll try to hold that off.
So nobody was opposed to that?
No.
Okay. All right, next resolution also approved at the subcommittee is 8920 resolution number Great Lakes Restoration Initiative funding also. Whereas the Minnesota Chippewa Tribal Environmental Program just submitted a proposal for the Great Lakes Restoration Initiative FY 2020 funding. Whereas the project will partially fund a wetland specialist to use standardized methods for wetlands monitoring throughout the 54th territory and Grand Portage. Whereas the wetlands are important, particular. Read the same one or different one? Okay, they are. All right, to use standardized methods for wetland monitoring throughout the 54 ceded territory and Grand Portage. Whereas wetlands are important, particularly given this uncertain future climate and buffering hydrological events, in addition to providing critical habitat for sensitive species. Right, the monitoring of wetland conditions and qualities needed to detect changes, inform management decisions, and help set restoration priorities to maintain these important natural resources. Now, but therefore be resolved that the Minnesota Chippewa Tribal Executive Committee supports the Minnesota Chippewa Tribal Environmental Program, providing assistance to the Grand Portage Band as described in this grant submission. Be further resolved that the Minnesota Chippewa Tribal Executive Committee approved acceptance for the Great Lake Restoration Initiative for 2020 funds through a contract with the Department of Interior BIA under PL 93638. Be finally resolved that the Minnesota Chippewa Tribal Executive Committee does hereby authorize the executive director or his appointed designee to sign any pertinent documents related to accepting grant funding, including any amendments as needed.
Any questions or comments? Do we have a motion to approve the Great Lakes Restorative Initiative FY 2020 funding resolution? Moved by Melanie,
Second.
seconded by Beth. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried.
Okay, then we'll go on with enrollment resolutions. Resolution number 9020, enrollment Fond du Lac eligibles.
Do we have a motion to approve?
There's a motion.
Motion by Kevin,
second,
second by Ferdinand. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
aye,
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried.
Resolution 9120, Fond du Lac ineligibles.
Motion.
Motion by Kevin,
second,
second by Ferdinand. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
aye,
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried.
Resolution 9220, Boys Sport eligibles.
Moved by David Morrison. Is
Second.
there a second by Ferdinand. All in favor signify by saying aye.
aye,
Oh, okay.
On the bottom of here, I see a couple. Eligibles are at 22%.
That's an incorrect memo, that one. Those were taken off. They sent you the wrong memo. Okay. Good catch, Baron. Thank you. Signify by saying aye.
aye,
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried. Good eye, Baron.
Okay, were they added to the ineligibles then?
Yes.
Okay, so they'll be added to the next resolution, resolution 9320, Boys Sport ineligibles.
Moved by David. Is there a second?
second,
Seconded by Ferdinand. All in favor signify by saying aye.
aye,
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried.
Resolution 9420, Grand Portage ineligible.
Moved by Beth. Second by April. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye,
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried.
Resolution 9520, Leech Lake eligibles.
Moved by Barron. Seconded by Archie. All in favor signify by saying aye.
aye,
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried.
Resolution 9620, Leech Lake ineligible.
Moved by Barron, second by Archie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye,
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried.
Next resolution is transfer to, Leech Lake transfer to Boys Sport, resolution 9720.
Moved by Barron, second by Archie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
aye,
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried.
Resolution 9820, Leech Lake blood degree change number 1.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried.
Resolution 9920, Leech Lake blood degree change number 2.
Moved by Barron, seconded by Archie. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried.
Resolution 120, Leech Lake no parent enrolled.
Moved by Barron, seconded by Archie. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
aye,
Opposed? Silent? Motion carried.
Okay, from there we go to the resolution handout. I'm not sure, Ferdinand and Kevin, did you get the handout resolutions?
no,
They're Mille Lacs, we got them late, Mille Lacs and eligibles and eligibles and White Earth resolutions.
Okay, we have,
I'll make sure Jane sends you a copy, but we might not have time to make motion on it.
okay,
Okay, and just to note that I think a resolution was pulled, so the handout says resolution 10220 should be 10120. The first resolution 10120 of the handouts is Mille Lacs eligibles.
Moved by Melanie. Is there a second? Second by Sheldon. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oops, sorry, opposed, silent, motion carried.
Resolution 10220, Mille Lacs ineligible.
Moved by Melanie, second by Sheldon. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried.
Okay, resolution 10320, White Earth eligible.
It's 103.
Should be 103.
We're changing. Yeah, the numbers are being changed. Do we have a motion to approve White Earth eligibles? Motion made by Mike, second by Alan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried.
Resolution 10420, White Earth ineligible.
Moved by Mike, second by Alan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried.
Resolution 10520, White Earth relinquished to Red Lake.
Motion by Mike, second by Alan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried.
Resolution 10620, White Earth blood degree change number 1.
Moved by Mike, second by Alan. All in favor signify by saying aye. Opposed, silent, motion carried. I'm just giving him time.
Resolution 10720, White Earth blood degree change number 2.
Motion by Mike, second by Alan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried.
Resolution 10820, White Earth blood degree change number 3.
Motion by Mike, second by Alan. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried.
Resolution 10920, White Earth established blood degree.
Motion made by Mike, second by Alan. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Opposed, silent, motion carried.
Okay, that's all the resolutions we have.
Okay. Gary, next we have BIA, Minnesota Agency.
Okay. The members have their packet, but for the audience, we got sharing. Should I read the letter?
Yes, please.
Okay. Dear Chair, this is from Robert Lentelman. He's the acting superintendent of Bemidji. Dear Chair and members of the TC, I hope this finds you all well in this difficult time. Despite the pandemic conditions, the Midwest Regional Programs and the Minnesota Agency have remained open, that we have a skeleton crew reporting to the office on a daily basis. There is currently one representative from both probate and realty in the office nearly every day, as well as myself as acting superintendent. All remaining agency staff are teleworking, though we are hopeful that we will be able to bring back the staff a little at a time. Probates and realty transactions continue to be processed as received. You're not heard yet, the BI Medicine Agency, along with the other tenants of the current Bemidji Federal Building, BI, OST, Wells, and IHS will be moving into new leased office space in the Bemidji Technological Park, located just east of Bemidji Airport. At this point, the address of the new space is 2225 Boring, B-O-R-I-N-G Court Northwest, Bemidji, Minnesota. However, there is a current proposal pending city approval to change the name of the street from Boring Court to Cooperative Court Northwest. The street is shared with a company called Cooperative Development, which is an underground cable installation company. That's the current name of Boring Court. Phone numbers will remain the same, as will the phone extensions. We will be sure to send out a formal announcement to you all concerning the address change once that occurs. Here's a brief schedule of move-related events over the next few weeks. Week of July 13th to 17th, we start today. Dismantle, move, and install record storage filing system at the new facility. Friday, July 17th, IHS will begin the move to the new facility. Monday, July 20th, moving day for BIA, OST, and WELSA. July 22nd to 30th, clean up and removal of all remaining items at the federal building. All tenants out by the 30th. The MCT contract staff has been an important and integral part of the process and has been very helpful in the preparation of box of records in preparation for this move. Because the workstations at new facility are fixed, there's a substantial amount of office furniture and equipment that will be surplus to our needs. If you have any travel programs who are in need of desks, file cabinets, shelving, bookcases, and modular workstations and chairs, please let the agency know and we can arrange a time for you to come check out what is available. If you're in need of anything specific, you may be able to help. My office number is 218-755-6754. If you are in the Bemidji area and would like to stop by and see the facility, you're invited and encouraged to do so. In the foreseeable near future, there will be likely a few staff there, so social distancing should not be an issue. However, we ask that you contact us first. The building is easy to find from the junction of Ann Street and Highway 71, just west of the hospital. Proceed north of 71 to the first available left. Follow that way west, Power Drive. Turn north on Power Drive about a block into Boarding Court. Other upcoming announcements. Partnered action will be held this year. It will be done in a virtual manner in Microsoft Teams. This will take place between August 10th and the 24th. The sessions will be virtual and spread out over the 2-week period. I believe the Midwest Regional staff sent additional information out of this event. Watch for more to come. If you wish to present on any topic that would benefit the PI audience, please reach out to Patty Olby and let her know by COB July 14th, which is tomorrow. Regional Director announced that a selection was made for the Regional Realty Officer position. Merville Harris was selected for the position and is slated to begin in mid-August. Some of you may remember Merville as he was a former regional TAM specialist. Regional Director has informed me that there is a certificate of eligible for superintendent position at the Medicine Agency. However, Human Resources has not released it to her yet. We'll be certain to keep you posted as I hear more. Lastly, if you have trouble reaching the agency over the next few weeks, or you have questions concerning issues, please contact my cell phone, 218-820-9636. Signed by Robert Lintelman.
Okay, thank you, Gary. Thank you, Gary.
President Chambers, I'm sorry, this
Holy.
is Joel.
Yeah, oh, scared me.
In addition to that, behind that letter is an email from Bob with the agency surplus property as an email cover, and then there's a type of sample letter you can submit to the BIA, Midwest Regional Property Officer, requesting surplus. And then the third page of that email includes what they have available, and that came directly from Acting Superintendent Lintelman.
Thank you, Joel. Okay, we'll move on to legal.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chairman. I have 3 issues that I'll touch briefly on here. The first is a memo on the applicability of the Hudson v. Zinke case. I gave a briefing, pretty detailed at the last TEC meeting regarding this litigation. Just a brief overview. On April 10th, 2020, the United States District Court in the DC District issued an order in this case. It involved a challenge to the secretarial election of the 3 affiliated tribes out in Montana. Essentially, boiling the issue down came to every IRA constitution and the federal regulations for secretarial elections have a quorum requirement. That quorum requirement is typically at 30%. There was a disagreement between the tribe in this case, three affiliated, and the Secretary of the Interior, Department of Interior, over what satisfies that quorum requirement. We've been talking about this a number of times. I mean, but the final decision in that case is that you have to give the tribe's interpretation of its own documents respect, and also they need to be satisfied in addition to the secretarial election regulations. What that means is that when tribes look at their constitutions, in this case, three affiliated says we need 30% of all of those eligible to vote in order for our constitutional amendments to be ratified. Previously, the Secretary of the Interior only required 30% of those who registered to vote. So you had low voter turnout, and constitutional amendments were enacted pursuant to those. The question at the last DEC meeting was, how does this affect the recent secretarial elections that we've conducted here, with particular focus on the election that occurred in 2005 and 2006 related to the felony disqualification for running for office. This memo goes into detail on the prospective applicability of Hudson v. Zinke, as well as the retroactive applicability. One thing to note right off the bat is that this case has been appealed to the DC Circuit Court of Appeals, so it's not entirely final yet. The effects of the litigation, we'll have to see what exactly happens. But for instances of this, for purposes of this discussion, we'll presume that it is affirmed. Okay, you presume that it's affirmed. For prospective application could be applied to the MCT. Previously, the TEC made the decision to say that 30% of all of those eligible to vote, meaning the entire tribal population over the age of 18, is required to enact constitutional amendments. That means for the current constitutional process, we'd need 11,000 people to vote in that election in order to satisfy that requirement. So that's the prospective applicability if this is in fact affirmed. Retroactively, the question came up, how does this implicate the 2005-2006 secretarial election? I reviewed a bunch of federal case law on the matter of when a rule changes, how it impacts cases that were previously decided. To a large extent, the new rule will not implicate the old cases that went to final litigation. Otherwise, courts would be opening up previous cases every time a rule of law changed, and that doesn't happen. In terms of the 2005-2006 secretarial election, that was ratified and approved by the BIA. The ratification and specifically the quorum-related issue was then appealed to the Interior Board of Indian Appeals, IBIA. That case, titled Wadena versus Midwest Regional Director, specifically focused on the quorum requirement and came to a final conclusion with a ruling that the secretarial election regulations were properly followed. The quorum requirement, which was low at that time, wasn't affected or wasn't the constitutional amendments weren't invalidated due to that quorum issue. So I think here the necessary conclusion is that this case will apply prospectively if it's affirmed, and it will apply to cases that haven't been decided to a final decision yet, cases still pending. But for all cases that have come to a conclusion, it's unlikely to affect those. There's limited ways in federal courts in which you can go back and change a final decision of the federal courts. Those are in the Federal Rules of Civil Procedure, Rule 60. I've only dealt with that specific rule in law school. It's hardly ever used, only in very limited circumstances. So that would be the only avenue in which to go back and look at that final ruling and invalidate the constitutional amendment ratified pursuant to the 2005-2006 secretarial election. That's all included in the memo. Are there any questions specifically with regard to Hudson v. Zinke? I'll provide updates as that case works its way through the DC Circuit Court of Appeals and let you know what happens. The second issue on the agenda was the tribal court litigation revolving around the MCT land transfer. There are a number of cases in which the same issues have been litigated. Two were filed in Leech Lake Tribal Court. Those headings were, one was against Chairman Jackson, as well as Secretary Treasurer LaRose. The other was against MCT President Chambers. We got a ruling in that Leech Lake litigation dismissing the complaint. Essentially, the ruling goes through and says the MCT members, their avenue to challenge ordinances and resolutions that are duly enacted by the TEC is through the referendum provisions. There's no alternative method to get around the constitutional referendum provisions by filing suit against TEC members in tribal court. Also, as you see, what I've included in the packet is the decision from the White Earth Band of Ojibwe Tribal Court reaching the same conclusion. That's with regard to the challenge to the MCT land transfer. So the main takeaway from that going forward to the folks on the live stream, as well as the folks here, is that if you want to challenge the duly enacted resolutions and ordinances of the MCT, your mechanism is the referendum provisions of the Constitution. Relatedly, we had an issue come up on the legislative subcommittee. There was a question posed on the live stream regarding an allegation that the Roberts Rules of Order were not followed at the October 2019 meeting with regard to this issue. Specifically, I think the question was that Chairman Jackson wasn't allowed to have his motion entertained. I'm not entirely sure everyone's recollection of that. I did review the minutes at that meeting. What happened was there was discussion at the very outset on typically or generally the Sandy Lake issue with regard to MCT land transfer. There's also other discussion on the MCT land transfer that was involved. What the TEC decided at that point and voted 11-0 was to schedule a special meeting in December to specifically focus on education related to the Sandy Lake issue as well as the MCT land transfer. I'm not sure if anyone has anything to add on the allegations of not following Robert's Rules of Order with regard to that, but that's what I could see what happened with regard to my review of the meeting minutes.
I know that there was a question on that, and with the questions, it might be nice to have some clarification, I think, with regards to the Robert's Rule of Order, and if they could be more specific, because what Phil looked at, and do we have a video of that? Do we have it taped, Gare? The October 30, 2019 meeting, is that taped?
Was it? Yes, it should be on NG Radio.
Okay, maybe what we can do is if Don brought the question of Don Goodwin, saying the video should also be reviewed or the tape, just take another look at that just to be sure, because we know that not everything is put into the minutes, you know, I mean, not word for word or that type of thing. So maybe we can do that at that time also, just to further answer some of the issues there with regards to the land transfer comment. Yes, Ellen.
Hello?
Hello.
Yeah, I just wanted for the Hudson v. Sankey, if I may.
Yes.
I was just hoping to take some time to take a look at this with our legal department back in White Earth and certainly the other bands as well. I want to thank Phil for putting this together. I know it's a lot of hard work. We asked to be in a short amount of time, so just that's all I ask is that you take a look at it. And if anything comes up, I'll just email the TEC and just kind of go from there, hopefully at the next meeting. So, thank you.
Yeah, and as a general point, I encourage you all to take these memos back and look at them with your specific legal teams and how they impact your on the ground dealings there. Relatedly, with regard to the Roberts Rules of Order, I'm not sure what we do at this later stage with regard to that motion. I mean, I'm not sure how we go back and correct those deficiencies, if there are in fact deficiencies, other than to entertain the motion again.
For those that hear Alan, he was basically saying that he would like to have their legal team and also the other tribes' legal teams to look at the Hudson versus Sinky documentation that we have here. And he thanked Phil for his hard work on this legal matter. And so I'm sure most of the tribes will take it back for their legal to look at also. So that's what Alan had mentioned. We only have 2 speakers. We're trying to use microphones here and we only have 2 speakers available. And so that's why we're having some difficulty in hearing and stuff. So thank you for telling us that you can't hear.
Kathy,
Yes.
Phil, I have a question.
Yep.
Hudson versus Zinke, I understand the wording and the legal side of it. I just have one question to a secretarial election, whether a waiver was just by the Interior Department or not, or the approval from the IBIA, is an interpretation made to that secretarial election. What does that put the secretary election at?
Yeah, and here's where you get into the one of the flaws of the secretarial elections is that for purposes of federal law, secretarial elections are federal elections, right? So
right.
we have case law stating that. So essentially the way in which to challenge those is through the Administrative Procedures Act, which has a 6-year statute of limitations, or the case can go to final resolution. For purposes of the federal election part, the second that case and those challenges, the waiver provisions as well as quorum requirements in that Wadena case came to a final conclusion in the IBIA. So from the Fed standpoint, the election is done, everything's been ratified. This is the Constitution for purposes of the secretarial election. That's why I think as we look forward at the constitutional amendment process, we need to seriously consider the value of secretarial review and secretarial involvement of some of the secretarial election requirements in our Constitution.
One of the questions I always had was, when you have a statute of limitations to look at something, one of the things is within the Minnesota Chippewa tribe is that it's non-informative to the membership and to do that and how to do it based on the tribal interpretations that exist with it and the deference that was put on in 94. So when you take a look at, say, Tribal Interpretation 180, it gives the TEC the sole body to interpret the Constitution. Okay, a secretary election that was done and words changed from the members voting on that wording, that specific wording, and then the TEC changing that wording for an interpretation is how is that put forward? And then to the point of saying, well, there's an ability to challenge it, but nobody knows where to bring it because it doesn't go directly to the administrative. It'll come to the TEC, but there's no direction to the membership on how to take care of that or any manner of that. And then when it used to go to the Interior Department, they would say that's an inter-tribal matter. So that documentation exists for anything that's ever been challenged under that manner, where it's gone to the Secretary of Interior or to the IBIA, and in a response coming back saying, hey, that's an inter-tribal matter. So I think it's bigger than what we're looking at. I think it goes beyond that point of what's sitting in front of us, because if they're making a ruling based on this, on a federal ruling, then all the complaints from the Minnesota Chippewa tribe that have been brought forward and went to the Interior Department or the IBIA for a ruling and said that's an inter-tribal matter, they have violated the MCT members' tribal rights under their own constitution. Just a thought.
Yeah, and I think you've keyed on the problem with the interpretations, right? There's no administrative involvement for purposes of the federal government for challenging pursuant to the APA. So you're left in kind of a weird position where without separations of power and a duly created court system pursuant to your constitution, you're in this weird spot. And I think you teed it up well for discussion at the constitutional amendment process.
It's good discussion.
Yeah, no, I think I mean, the interpretations will always be problematic for that exact reason is how are they reviewable? Who are they reviewable to?
Right. I just want to say this, but I'm not going on to the interpretations. I'm going at the lack of statutory authority by the Secretary of Interior and then the IBIA. If individuals turn a complaint and it doesn't go anywhere administratively here, and they bring it to there and they say that's an inter-tribal matter, in my opinion, they violated the tribal members' rights by telling them that we can't deal with that because it's an inter-tribal matter. Constitution states specifically it's not a inter-tribal matter. It states specifically this goes to the Secretary of Interior, and if there's a review on that, it goes to the IBIA. Just my thoughts. Miigwech.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point of view to keep in mind as we go forward. Sure. There's some really good discussion on the live stream right now currently about, you know, identifying different issues to focus on the constitutional amendment process. I mean, one, for instance, no checks and balances. I think as we look forward and look at some of the constitutional amendment stuff, clear separations of power with limited reviewing authority over kind of each of the functions is certainly something that could be included in those constitutional amendments. Just another couple things to address briefly. First of all, last week, it's been a good week to be an Indian, the past 7 days. First of all, the McGirt v. Oklahoma case came down last week. That was a solid ruling for tribal sovereignty. The facts of that case are a bit troubling in terms of how it got before the Supreme Court, but the focus itself was on the disestablishment of the Muskogee Reservation and whether that in fact happened. The court, in a 5-4 decision, ruled that reservation wasn't disestablished for purposes of the Major Crimes Act. Going forward, those crimes and pretty much half of Oklahoma need to be brought and prosecuted in Oklahoma federal court. So the implications of how we can use that going forward will be interesting and is still kind of a development thing.
Phil, there's a question for you on there from, it says a question for Phil about the applicability of McGirt versus Oklahoma Supreme Court decision. 1855 treaty reservation boundaries at Sandy Lake and Rice Lake still exist, as well as all lands north of 1825 Treaty of Prairie du Chien line. All ceded lands are considered Indian country.
Okay, I think for the first part of that, the McGirt decision could be used to bring forward that argument, definitely. Secondly, I'm not entirely sure, and I haven't done the analysis yet of how this implicates ceded territory. What we were talking about in McGirt, as well as some of the case law that it was dealing with, were the actual established reservation boundaries. So I haven't seen how that will be implicated off reservation and ceded territories, but I think Michelle brought up a good point with regard to application of the McGirt case and how it will help define these boundaries that, you know, have been argued are disestablished and things like that. Definitely.
Yeah, there was a comment also about a member on the live stream asking for a new vote on the MCT land transfer. That currently is not on the agenda. And so the issue is already, the resolution has already been passed. And if that's something that this committee wants to look at in the future, because right now with this pandemic, nothing's moving forward. So nothing will be done this year, so it's something possibly
Legislatively, yes.
legislatively, so possibly next year or maybe not, just depending on how things go. This pandemic has really slowed a lot of business up and put a stop to a lot of things that need to be done both on the state side and the federal side. So if this is something, that needs to be done in the future, we can do that if the committee wishes to do so.
Yeah, certainly. I think the case that we litigated in tribal court, it doesn't say that the TEC can't reconsider it. It says that in order to change it from a tribal member standpoint, you need to go through the referendum provisions.
Correct.
The couple more points. The Washington football team changed their name or stated today that they will be no longer going by the Redskins moniker and mascot. So that's a very positive thing. Finally, this is another piece that you might want to take back and talk to with your legal teams. Flandreau Santee Sioux versus Nome. This is a tax case coming out of South Dakota. 8th Circuit decision that was just no longer pending. The Supreme Court didn't take up cert on it. So this says that, and I'm not sure each of your tax agreements are probably different, but this says that certain use taxes that were previously collected pursuant to state taxation are no longer on the table for sharing with the state. So it says tribes exclusively for casino-related use taxes deserve 100% of those. So if your tax agreements say that you have a use tax on, let's say, hotel and lodging at your gaming establishment or food and beverage, things like that, those are no longer, through this decision, required to be shared pursuant to the tax agreement. So I would encourage you all to take a look at that decision. That's Flandreau Santee Sioux v. Nome. What happened in that case, Flandreau has been kind of a leader in some of this tax-related issues. They pretty much told the state of South Dakota to bug off when they try to come in and collect certain use taxes pursuant to their taxing authority. I think before, the way that tax laws were set up in the Supreme Court and federal precedents, it was confusing on how those uses in fact were implicated there. So take a good look at your tax agreements and see if you're sharing any of the use taxes at your casinos that are directly related and derived from your casinos and patrons. Those could be used to maybe open up further discussions on those tax agreements to keep more of your revenue and business that you generate on reservations. With that, that's really my last point. If there's any further questions, I stand ready to answer to the best way I can.
I don't see any other questions right now, so I'm not sure, Gary, do we have Adam Fairbanks on the line? Is he in a telephone line by chance?
I know that the last text I got from the, he wanted to hear me.
Yes, actually in the package, there is some information from him.
The message I got from him is he wanted to present it to the subcommittee.
Oh, a subcommittee?
Yeah. he wanted
Okay.
to present it to one of the committees to, measure the time for,
Okay, it's regarding homelessness.
yeah, I think, one of his,
Here, go ahead, Mike.
he was looking for developers, and he was looking for like, an agent or like a, yeah, like someone to have the building, which falls under that, being like a tribe, which is the Minnesota Chippewa
Oh, I
tribe, which
see
we
what
do
you're
with the
saying.
buildings down there, but he needed someone to own the building, but he let someone manage it for the homeless. The process or the, I don't know, it's in the back of the thing where I don't have all the, I know when you talk to Gary, I know he talked to you about a little bit about, he wanted you guys to do just kind of be like the caretaker, the building owner to house, like a navigation center, wasn't it? Something like that. And so I know that he wanted to, he was asking the Chippewa tribe to be the beneficiary of that, or to have that building. And he was gonna look for the capital to buy it and then put it in the Minnesota Chippewa tribe's name for us as all 6 bands. Because I know when we talked earlier, me and Kevin, we talked about our existing just enrollments, our enrollment cards, and we talked about a central location in the urban area where all 6 bands can get services from tribal IDs to, other, how do you say it, other places of need where they can get help. I know that's what we were talking about, and I know Kevin can probably say a few words about it too, that we were looking to become more unified as, down in the urban area to help our people off the reservation. So I know that was one thing that we were discussing. So I know that Adam had a pretty good idea to put this together, because he was looking for more of a consortium of us to be the landlords of this building, to make sure that that it's run through all of us, and we serve all 6 bands. So I think that was one of his presentation. He was going to kind of give it, but I think he was still working on his business plan and working on some other stuff on some of the money that was going to come in, the capital that was going to pay for the program, because there's so much right now down in Minneapolis and St. Paul. There's a lot of need for homelessness. I know that Powderhorn Park is becoming really enlarged down there, and I know that the city of Minneapolis and other entities are looking at trying to break that encampment up. And I know that even like today we were talking, I was talking to that they're like the encampments, like trying to create their own security teams. And I know that we need to do more what we're, at our level to help our people in the urban area. And I think that's the bottom line is for us to help. So be good.
Thank you, Mike. I agree. And we at Boys Fort had a sad situation happen where we had a 22-year-old homeless individual in the encampment in the cities down there die at 22 years old. And, the homelessness issue is huge. And, I really think that there is something we should do collaboratively to try to fix the issue. It would be nice to have Adam come and do a presentation to the subcommittees and the TEC. A lot of us are, trying to help with our funding with COVID in our urban offices, but there's such a great need, and it's really it's increasing and it's growing. So maybe you can get in touch with Adam and see if he could do that for us. That would be great. And Gary.
Okay, actually, I just got a text from Adam just now, and I responded. He's going to call me back tomorrow and set something up.
Okay.
But the last time I talked to him, he brought up how there is money available now, and that's why he wants to move on this right away. And I did say, but we do need numbers and stuff. He talked about maybe inside of little homes inside of a Kmart was one of the talks. The second one was maybe there's a hotel available. There's funds to purchase it and everything else. I told him there also has to be funds to keep it going once you get it purchased, because we have an office building right now in Minneapolis that we're losing money on every month. So I said we have to be careful of that. Yeah. And before I would recommend anything to one of our committees to move forward, we'd have to show that would be self-sustaining. And he's going to put together those numbers, and that was our last talk. I thought he might come on today, but that's all right. He'll contact me, but we're probably going to have a special subcommittee meeting with the finance committee, the finance housing committee, and the TEC, and we'll work on that in the next few weeks after I talk with Adam.
That sounds good, Gary. Thank you. Some of the main questions you'll see up on the board is, the casinos are open, and when are we going to meet with the membership? And really the tribal executive committee here hasn't had the chance to actually discuss anything with regards to meetings and subcommittee meetings and what have you. This one came up as part of the Constitution to have the July meeting. Our next meeting is in October. And as we know that the COVID cases are rising in the state, in and around the country and what have you. But, you know, for the membership, like I said, you know, we are trying to do things as best we can, this being our first meeting, but some of the comments are using voice and not letting them type in questions. There's a lot of things that we need to look at for our next meeting. And so I'm not sure if we can do a conference call or whatever to discuss, or if you want to discuss it here today with regards to what will some of our future meetings look like. We have October coming up, and I think as long as we have people on the line here, it might be helpful if we can just have a little discussion on some of the future meetings for the TEC or MCT with a less COVID scenario and a more COVID scenario, because we don't know what the COVID pandemic is going to do. It may curtail, it may get worse. So, you know, in my estimation as president, if it gets worse, we would have to do, you know, Zoom meetings. And I know the next meeting is scheduled for Portage. And I'm not sure the technical capabilities up there, IT staff and that type of thing, because right now we're using voice forts here and, you know, how that will entail. But, you know, I think the pandemic itself is bringing technology to the forefront, where a lot of the rural areas, and I speak of Portage and Voice Fort, some have limited capabilities with regards to technology. So in the future, I'm not sure what we want to do. And if you guys have any comments or suggestions, comments or suggestions, it would be nice to hear them at this time if you would like to. Well, everybody's quiet. You know, I think that's something we can discuss in the future, because, you know, most casinos are only at half capacity, and, you know, getting the membership together, you know, we're hearing about gatherings and increasing and that kind of thing. So if it were to be discussed and agreed upon today, I think we would have to go with Zoom or any other kind of meetings. The question would be, though, you know, public, how the public can be a part of that, and how do we want it set up. So maybe, Gary, what we can do is have some telephone conference calls and then get it out to the membership way prior to the next meeting. I would say at least, if we could, 30 days in advance, and get the agendas on and that type of information. And granted, those agendas are subject to change due to the fact that, you know, when they're brought here, we do some additions or deletions or whatever. So if you guys have no other comments.
This is Kevin.
Go ahead, Kev.
I disagree about having the meetings in person right now, but if we were to do that, we already have protocols, I believe, set up in each reservation, how we allow people to come into our casinos, correct? We have questions that are being asked at the door. We're requiring them to wear masks. We're taking their temperatures. So I'm kind of stuck here with the questions that are being asked to where, if we're going to have public meetings or physical meetings when we're pretty much opening up our businesses in that exact same order. So if we were to do that to the protocols that we already have established, can that be applied to a meeting that's going to be a physical meeting that's going to be in a big open space? Just my thought.
It's a good question, Kevin. You know, I think, and, you know, I know that we heard a lot about the marches and the protests and people gathering and that kind of thing. And then these large parties that people are having. But, you know, I think it just depends on if somebody shows the symptoms, if they have a fever, it changes almost every day. Like with the casinos, we're at half capacity. So one of the questions I guess I would raise is, would we limit participation to a certain number? Because like our room here, for example, at Boys Fort is not as big as Black Bears. That kind of thing with the seating capacity. Because at the casino, we're basically kind of half capacity. And so, I agree though, Kevin, that brings up some good points with the casinos opening and our staff coming back.
Well, the thing is, if we don't do it, then we should find a way, if we're gonna have these meetings this way, then we're gonna try to have to find a way to answer the questions that the membership are bringing in.
Okay, I think I agree, Kevin. Beth has a comment?
Yes, just a short comment for Grand
Is that on?
Portage. Can you hear? Yeah,
Okay, bring it closer, Beth.
just a short comment for Grand Portage. We could probably pull together the technology that's needed for the meeting. It may look a little different in our style. We probably don't have as many microphones. But we do have space and we do have tables. And so if it was something like this, we could probably pull it off in Grand Portage. But I won't be there then, so just wanted to get that out.
Thank you, Beth. I'm not sure if you heard Beth, but she said at Portage, they would probably be able to, maybe not in the same format, but, or with technology, but to be able to have the meeting at Portage, but she won't be there, so. Well, she'll be there in attendance, but I mean, basically in the chair position, so. Just some things for us to consider in the future, and I think we really need to meet on it. While this meeting is fresh in our minds, to remember some of the things, because it is recorded. Remember some of the things that are on the the screen here, that some of the questions or comments that we have, to try to address them as best we can. But like we say, everything changes from day to day, it seems like, with this pandemic. So I just hope that everybody can be safe, and I think, wear your masks and wash your hands and practice the social distancing, and be safe. Gary, do you have, I'm sorry, I'm kind of going off here. Do you have information?
The only information I would have is the tribal leaders telephone call with, or conference call with Joe Biden campaign a week from today. And do you have a latest date of 10:30? Is that
The tribal leaders have a daily call at 10:30, all 11 tribal leaders. So that must be the time.
there was two times, 10:30 and then 4 o'clock
Yeah,
also?
10:30 is the tribal leaders. I think agreeing with that time.
Okay,
At 4 o'clock is the call with tribal leaders in the state.
okay.
Okay. So tribal leaders, there's a call to Biden's campaign a week from today at 10:30.
Okay, that's the only information.
Okay. Okay, and no other business, I'll call for motion to adjourn. Oh, April? Beth?
President Chambers and members of the TEC, I was thrown back by your comments and wanted to reply and say to all of you for being welcoming and for teaching me and for just being so kind and willing to open yourselves up to a new person. And so look up to you all, and you're forever in my hearts. Thank you so much for this. Thank you.
Oh, G. McWitch. April?
Which, my friend?
Friday, for tribal leaders who want to participate in a call with the Lieutenant Governor and Governor about wild rice and water quality. That's going to be from 4 to 5 p.m. Friday, this coming Friday, the 17th. So I'm looking for as much tribal participation as we can have from leadership and from staff. So just please put that on your calendars and let me know if you want to want to, as to whether you're going to be there or not. So it'd be great. Thank you.
Thank you, April. 4 to 5 on Friday, the 17th, tribal leaders call with the governor and lieutenant governor on the wild rice sulfate issue.
April, is that gonna be on the are we gonna use the regular numbers and stuff that we do every day at 4 for this?
I've got a planning session with Angie. So
Okay.
I asked the question if whether or not it would be their hosting call or if we were going to do like a Zoom. So it would be nice to be able to have as much support from tribal leaders and tribal staff to be able to be visible or participate. So I'll coordinate with her and get that information out to you guys. If you have a preference, let me know.
Did you hear that, Kevin?
Yes, Miigwech.
Okay, if no other business, I'll call for a motion to adjourn. Moved by Beth. Is there a second?
Second, April.
Second by April. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Oops, sorry, Bird. Opposed, silent, motion carried. Everybody, please be safe, use masks, social distance, wash your hands, safe travels. Thank you, Beth, for your leadership. Thank you, Darnell and Ed, our IT guys, for being here with us today. Bye, guys.
Go on, man.
Eagle Opperman, Eagle Opperman.
Gigawatt men, safe journeys.
So this is a Zoom.
Okay.